All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today. This is Hayden Plays. I wanted to go over this video again. Scene 38 Reimagined by Fxitinpost, which, if many recall, came out, and people kind of forgot about it because it was out for a while that this was being made, and then news just kind of stopped on it. I forgot that it was happening, but I remember the teaser being really interesting, and then the video hit. Now at 24 million views, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, if you look at the actual canon Star Wars fights on YouTube, they don't even come close to that. So I wanted to revisit it again, now that we understand its weight a little bit more, and try to figure out why it works so well. So without further ado. It's respectful. It keeps in mind what worked, sets the stage, uses the original actors, which is part of why this works, at least partly. 20 years, right? They haven't seen each other in 20 years.
Our long-awaited meeting has come at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Only a master of evil, God.
Your powers are weak, little man.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
And I will show you the true nature of the Force.
That's what hate would do to somebody over that amount of time. I mean, Vader has been looking for this guy, but wasn't sure if he was dead or present at all. And to see that veracity, that anguish, with the excellent choreography just makes it work. And it was something the original was missing. Adding new choreography makes a lot of sense too. The punches, the headbutt, you know? Anger, rage, anguish. And I mean, that's what the fight would be, though, and it's something that the original just couldn't capture. I understand they were limited, but
What kept you?
We are running some old friends.
this is it.
All right. Seems okay if we can get to it. Just hope the old man got the tractor beam out of commission.
Vader is coming after him with probably a fantasy he's had for that whole time. If I got the chance to meet Obi-Wan again, what would I do? This.
Ben?
Run, run.
Kenobi.
Okay, so it holds all of its weight. What these guys did, these guys and girls, what they did. I mean, when they announced that they were going to redo this, I thought it was going to be certainly interesting and maybe fun and certainly more choreographed. But this, I mean, they made the scene the home run that it needed to be to connect the prequels and the original films. If you consider seeing A New Hope in its original form after the prequel movies, there was a major missed opportunity in this specific scene to close out the books on those two characters, their relationship, and their interaction together. And they did a brilliant job. I don't know if anybody else caught that, but when you see Vader undercut his former master, and he falls to the floor hard, uses the last of his present energy to push Vader off, doesn't really work. When we see Vader rise with that great tracking shot of the helmet, the camera briefly goes behind him to look at his victory over his former master. And he's doing this with his hands for a second. The same thing Vader would later do with Luke when he loses to him. Very interesting. If you cut me into pieces and left me to die on a beach burning alive 20 years ago, and I saw you again, I would not fight you like they showed in 77. And I understand they were limited. You know, they were doing the best they could first time. I get it. And the performances were there. I mean, Alec Guinness did a phenomenal job when he walks into that hallway and sees Vader again. Even without having all that backstory there, the way Guinness acted the scene was perfect. Shock. But because of the choreography and then the final scenes where he just kind of gives up for no good reason, he just kind of stops. It appears they're even in the original film. It doesn't really convey the final gravity of what was needed considering the tragedy of their relationship. And you see that in this. I hate you. You were my brother. I loved you. That makes... It's the perfect bridge. If I was at Lucasfilm, Disney, whatever power element that would be, and I saw this, and realized that people did this essentially with their own money for free, not contracted, not licensed, but did this, I would hire them to remaster all three of the original films, no question. And you know, you can nitpick some of the effects in this, but you have to understand they're not doing it officially, they're doing it unofficially, with the best that they can acquire and use, right? And look what they did. Any of those nitpicks, I want to change the frame of this as far as pacing, direction, choreography, inserting the prequel flashback, dialogue. Perfect. They're doing Empire now. Harder scene to do because it still holds up pretty well. But the choreography and some of the stunts and they could certainly go to town on that too. So here's the final point I wanted to make. That's the best lightsaber duel in Star Wars history, period. It's a bold statement for sure, but and there are other really good ones too, but this, it conveys the characters and it conveys the way that you would fight in that kind of situation. Obi-Wan was regret. Still a Jedi Master, still the Master of Defense, but his body was not able to keep up with the time it's been, right? He's past the peak, he's in the twilight, whatever you want to call it. Whereas Vader's one advantage, despite being burned alive and crippled and an amputee and everything else, is that the machine's doing a lot of the work his body couldn't do. So that doesn't age. You know, his will is still dark side, Sith, evil, kill him, revenge, right? And his force power hasn't diminished at all. Though he may not be able to do all the acrobatics and whatnot, the machine and the hate have combined to make this monster. And, you know, in this fight, all bets were off. As soon as he lunged after him, you didn't know what was going to happen. And we saw the film in our hearts. We probably realized it wasn't going to deviate from that ending scene where, you know, that's it. But everything in between that was you know, you didn't know how all this was going to go with what new content they put in. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, it's been almost, I think, actually past a year since this came out. Again, 24 million views, which is nuts. Unofficial, nuts. Within a year. But yeah, please, you know, comment below. I think that there's a much need to discuss this scene continually to keep it alive in the imaginations of fans of the franchise. And just storytelling in general. I mean, this is how you do it. If you want to do a fight scene, it doesn't matter how cool or how awesome the effects are or any of that stuff. Story is king. And if two people are going to fight, they better have a good reason to fight. It's not just like a small action transitionary scene where there's, you know, the hero or the bad guy dismissing irrelevant stunt people. You know, that sounds bad. Irrelevant stunt characters. Their relevance is that they're to be dismissed to make way for the villain or the hero, right? But this, when you have two people with that much history meeting for one last time, it's not just a duel of the lightsabers and physicality. It's of ideologies. It's of relationships. It's about regret, remorse. You know, how could you do this to me? Why did you leave? You know, that is the fight. That is the scene. And the choreography is the most brutal I've ever seen in Star Wars. And it needed to be. It needed to be. It needed to be raw. This was not a fencing match or, you know, chivalrous. You know, this was life or death every second from when they met in that corridor to the way it ended. And I know that some people have said, well, you know, you see Empire, you see Jedi, he doesn't fight with that veracity, with that, you know, just pure Sith evil and power and, you know, dominance and just relentlessness, right? The context there is different. You know, he was under orders pretty much to bring Luke back with him to the dark side or bring him back to be corrupted or corrupt him while dueling. But even then, I want to note that you see Vader for the first time ever in Star Wars go aggressive like that in Empire, in the original cut. After he falls down that little shaft thing, Luke goes looking around for him, and then, you know, Vader throws the boxes, which they incorporated that into this, and it was great. So Luke goes looking for him again, and Vader does that lunge from around the bulkhead of that corridor. And the gloves were off in that moment. And it leads to him being able to just summarily say, you know what, you've lost. Don't let yourself be destroyed like Obi-Wan did, which makes this scene even more pertinent because we know what that relentless Vader is like now. It wasn't just, you know, the lightsabers that actually couldn't connect and the choreography just wasn't there. But now we see, okay, this scene establishes Vader as an absolute monster, you know, uncaged animal, right? When you piss him off and he's in that mode. But he is still trying to follow the orders because at the end of the day, he's still a servant to Palps, right? So he pulls back just enough not to kill him, but he still cuts off his son's own hand. So he's not, again, fully redeemed yet, but the seeds are being planted to lead him to that point. But I'm really excited to see what they come up with. I mean, there's a lot of improvement that can be made to the Empire and Jedi fight. The endings of those two duels are critical to keep the essence of those intact. You know, the whole scene where in Jedi Luke loses it and finally defeats Vader. That's perfection. But everything leading up to that, I'm excited. I don't think it would be an assumption to say that they'll stop at this Empire, you know, Bespin Reimagined thing. They're going to keep going to conclude the original films, which, as much as I love them, the choreography is not held up. It hasn't held up. It got better, but, you know, it didn't hold up. The one that needed the most readjustment was this film scene. Because even when I was a kid, little, watching the original movie in the VHS at home, or, you know, in the theater with the remaster, the special edition, right? The scene wasn't good then, wasn't good when I was a kid. It just didn't work, but because it was the first time you saw that, you went with it. But as you saw the rest of what they were able to come up with, that's the one duel that just never really did what it needed to do, and especially considering the characters that we know now, it needed to be what these guys did. And the fact that they did it on their own, I don't think anybody expected them to do the scene in the way that they did that would make all the prequel films in a way better, knowing that that's where they would lead to. And it makes A New Hope better, because when, you know, they're chasing Vader, Vader's chasing them in the corridor, the ending climax with the space, you know, the X-Wings, right? They go into the corridor. When Han finally comes back and decides to be the good guy and Vader's dismissed, it's so much more of a gratifying moment for the audience, because we're mad and are angry at Vader for killing a character we care about more, because we have all this context now. So this scene makes the scene it was based on 8,000 times better. It makes the movie better. It makes the subsequent movies better. And it makes the previous movies better. In one scene. 6 minutes, right? One scene that these guys did for free. I mean, I showed this to an editor friend of mine. And I'll leave it with this. And he said such a great thing, that you see this kind of thing only once every 4 or 5 years in professional editing work, when you're given a demo of what a group or an individual is capable of, and you only see this kind of thing one time in that time span, and it dictates the rest of their career, because it's such a highlight that even if they don't hit that every time, you know that they have the potential to go and do things that you never thought possible. And that's what storytelling is supposed to be, vis-a-vis what Star Wars should do if it works. So again, let me know your thoughts. If there's anything that you picked up on that's interesting, please let me know. Again, Hayden Plays. Pleasure as always, and I'll see you guys soon.